Hi there, I'm Cicmila and today I want to teach you how to draw 3 different houndstooth patterns. Now I did have a lot of struggle with some of these trying to figure out exactly the proportions, but I did try to make it as simple as possible for you, so let's get on right to it. So for all patterns I recommend using a grid paper or using a blank paper but putting a grid template underneath. So to start off we're going to do the traditional houndstooth pattern. So you want to start out with a 2x2 square. Start out by completely filling in the top right corner. Next you want to make a diagonal line and a little triangle like shown in the top left corner and then mirror it on the bottom right corner. Okay, so let's see what it looks like when it's put together into a pattern. You can do this in different ways. I like the way that I did the first 2 patterns, which is just completing a pattern and then making the one next to it and then the one next to it. But you can also do it the way I did the rest of them in this little piece, which is to first put all the squares in and then all the lines and then in the end all the triangles. Now here's the reason why I prefer the first method, because as you can see in the second one I actually missed one little corner because I just wasn't paying enough attention, and I think it's a lot easier when you do it piece by piece in complete quarters. So now let's see what it looks like on a smaller scale. I personally prefer it when it's a bit bigger. I think it looks very badass, but a lot of people like it smaller for little details, backgrounds, and it's very popular to use on clothing. So to sum it up, start with a 2x2 square, fill in the top right, draw the shown pattern on the top left and mirror it to the bottom right, leaving the bottom left empty. So the next pattern we're going to do is this very beautiful untraditional houndstooth pattern, and it's actually quite a bit harder than it looks. So what you want to do is to start off with a 3x3 square. Now many people make the mistake of starting with a 2x2. It doesn't work with a 2x2. I've tried so many times. It has to be a 3x3 square, and then adding an additional square on each side. Now with drawing this pattern, it's really easy to make a mistake. So what I like to do is to draw X's where the fill spots should be, because they're a lot more forgiving, and you will see later when I make a little mistake, it's barely noticeable. So let's see how we can make this into a pattern. Each piece you add to the left should be 1 row lower, and each piece you add to the right should be 1 row higher. Each piece you add to the bottom should be 1 row to the right, and each piece you add to the top should be just 1 row to the left. And there you can see when you outline them you get a very clean pattern. Now it's pretty tricky to do this on a smaller scale, especially if you're just using normal grid paper, because you have to start with basically 1.5 square add on to that. So basically each one of these little squares you are dividing into 4 different sections and then working with those. Now here's the mistake that I told you. You can see there on the top there's a little line, but it's barely noticeable, and now when I fill them in you can very clearly see the pattern. Now I think this looks very beautiful in 2 colors, so next I'm going to take a normal graphite pencil and then fill in the negative just so you can see that it's the exact same pattern in the negative. Now this third one that I want to show you is the easiest one to draw but the hardest one to put in a pattern, and I will explain why in just a few seconds. For this one try to use blank paper with a grid underneath if any way possible, because it's going to make it a lot easier to put in a pattern. So you want to start out with a 2x3 square and fill it in as shown. So basically you have 2 full squares and 2 triangles, and when you fill it in it's actually a very simple shape, but it looks beautiful in a pattern. So now I'm going to show you what happens when you try to put it in a pattern, and then I'm going to show you another way you can do it where you can actually make a nice pattern. So you want to start off by drawing the basic shape and drawing 2 diagonal lines to the side. Now let's call these lines bridges. And then you want to keep adding more shapes, and they're all at the same level, and then with the little bridges in between. Now take your other color and just fill in the negative spaces, making the exact same pattern. Okay, now here we get to the problem. You can see that there is barely any space for the red bridges to connect because the blue basic shapes come all the way to the bottom of the square. Now if you're using a blank paper and a grid, then after you finish one row, move it around half or a third of a square up or down so you can get this beautiful pattern with the even spacing. But if you're using just a normal grid paper, I will show you how you can do it. So start off again by doing the same simple design, but you can see here how the peaks of the design don't exactly reach the bottom of the square, so we're cheating a bit basically. So when you draw the basic shape, at the top of it and the bottom of it, try to go only around 2/3 to 3/4 of a square. So now you can see when we add the second row, there's perfectly enough space to connect the two basic shapes. So that is it. I hope you all find this very helpful. I enjoyed doing these, and let me know if you want me to teach you how to make any other patterns. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you give this video a like and subscribe down there for more, and I will see you all in my next video.